Charlemagne the God here, live from the Mental Health Coalition. We about to have us a nice little lively conversation today. These have been called one-to-ones, courtesy of the Mental Health Coalition. Oh, there she goes.
Hello.
Debbie, what's happening, my sister?
Oh, Charla, I love you. I'm so happy to see your face.
I love you more. Listen, you know, we're coming from the Mental Health Coalition handle today for their 31 Days in May project. You know as well as I do that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and every single day in May, they're gonna have live conversations about mental health. You know, and like I always tell folks, you know, the only way we're gonna eradicate the stigma around mental health is for all of us to tell our stories. So, you know, that's what we're here today to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Owning our stories and being an acceptance of our stories is such a big part of what the work is, the work of self, the work of healing, the work of the soul. You know, I think sometimes our stories can really limit us, but when we connect to them and use them as things that don't define us and aren't a judgment for ourselves, for our stories, there's just so much opportunity.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I want an honest answer, okay? And it's a question nowadays that you should not ask people if you don't want an honest answer.
Oh, Lord.
How are you?
I feel very equipped for this moment of my life.
Mm.
So I feel very well. I feel nourished. I feel good, but life has its challenges, which I think for all of us, and I speak to that to say it's so important. I think a lot of people see me meditating on the gram or, you know, see me working in wellness, and the imagination is that, oh, you've reached that limit and now everything is peace and everything is constant tranquility. And yes, I do feel peace a resounding amount of the time, but my life is like every human experience. It's filled with challenge. And I think what these tools give us when we do lock into healing work is that the way we feel about ourselves doesn't have to have againstness. It doesn't have to have charge, right? We can go through all of the challenges that we may face with a little more stability, a little more grace, a little more structure to our healing, and a little bit more ability to be equipped to meet our own needs.
Mm. So what about those moments when you show up and you say you feel equipped, but what about those moments when you don't feel equipped? Because that's the thing about life, right? It's always these ebbs and flows. Like some days you're like, you up and you're ready for the challenge, and some days you like, yo, I'm just exhausted. I'm drained. I don't have anything to pour into anybody because I need somebody to pour into me.
Well, you know what? It's interesting, right? Because by the word equipped, I never said that I had every tool. And so I think we have to reevaluate what equipped means. Sometimes equipped is I have the ability to stop, right? Like sometimes it's a day like I had a few weeks ago where I did feel deeply depressed. I had some depression creeping in. I was really exhausted. And in that moment, I just said, I'm going to be with myself today. I'm not going to get mad at myself for feeling down. I'm not going to be in judgment of myself for feeling not as on as I normally am. Instead, I'm just going to say, oh, my body's natural alarm system is letting me know that I need to focus on myself, that I need to have some rest. And so that is being equipped, knowing when to turn off, knowing when to surrender. So on days like that, it's just so powerful to listen to your own soul, to listen to your body and let it tell you what it needs, and stop trying to program it with other things that you're seeing in the world or that you're seeing on Instagram, or not to be comparative with your journey. You know, part of the human experience is we are constantly in this ebb and flow. You know, we are constantly navigating and moving, and just surrendering to that flow and knowing that on the days that don't feel as nourishing and don't feel as good, you're still enough. You're still worthy. You still have the ability to change directions at any moment. You have choice.
What do you think, you know, when we talk about Mental Health Awareness Month, what do you think people should be aware of? Like if it's just a person that's just tuning into this, you know, they want to do the work on themselves, but they haven't started. Where does the journey begin?
I think the journey really begins in simply identifying that you want to feel something else. I don't want to put it in the hierarchy of like, you want to feel better, right? Because that's, everyone has their different level of that, whatever that is. And sometimes our perception of better or more is based on the limitation of how we know ourselves right now. So I think when you just make the conscious choice that you want to feel something different, that is the beginning of it. Intention setting cannot be, I think sometimes it's undervalued. I think sometimes people see the idea of intention setting as you've already reached a certain level of enlightenment, and now it's about manifesting. And so, oh, my intention is I want to have this, I want to be this. And sometimes intention setting is just saying, I don't have the answer, but I know I want to make another choice. Please, please, universe, God, people, tangible people in my life, please support me in this. And knowing that you not knowing the answer yet is what the journey is. You know, a lot of times I think too, even when it comes with the acceptance of self, even when it comes with the way that we experience our mental health, we walk into even our healing with such a judgment of, why don't I already know this? Why don't I already have the tools? And that judgment is what limits our healing. That judgment is what limits our ability to even seek out the help, because we're trying to wrap ourselves in a certain package before we're even delivering to the doorstep of the person that will help us. We are allowed to come as we are. In that moment, we are enough. We are enough all the time. But giving ourselves permission to not be perfect, to not be the experts. And I think, you know, part of the way the human brain works in general is that we really prize predictive behavior ever since the caveman age, when we had to stay alive. And so we look at everything that we envision for ourselves, and we think we have to have the vertical or the trajectory of how to do that. Well, if you've never done it, how could you? How would you? It hasn't been done by you yet. And that's okay. And that's what the journey is. And so I think the piece of it that I would really speak to, that I hope anyone watching this takes away, is the importance of curiosity. When we begin to look at our lives with curiosity instead of judgment, we create our freedom. So even on the days that we feel sad, I work in well-being, but I also have been in this global pandemic. I have struggled with depression for the past year, as so many people. But in the moments that I'm feeling my perceived lowest, I'm really looking at myself and saying, okay, what are your needs? How can you show up for yourself right now? And if you can't show up for yourself, that's okay. But how can you find someone or something to aid you? But our freedom is in our curiosity. As soon as we begin to see ourselves as these divine co-creators that can be active participants in our lives, that don't have to know all the answers, that can just begin to ask questions, we take the limitations off our life. We take the limitations off of our mental health, off of our soul nourishment, and there's just opportunity in front of us.
Not having the answers is what causes panic attacks, Dev.
I know. And what helps with that is making peace with the fact that you were never designed to have the answers. Who told you you had to have them? Who told you that you had to know everything? Who told you that you had to quote unquote, fix yourself because of brokenness, or that something was wrong with you because you didn't learn within your family system ways to regulate your emotions? We have to start, even our curiosity, we have to start looking at the way we've answered questions for ourselves. Curiosity isn't asking a question and then shooting in with an answer. Curiosity is asking the question and allowing life to inform that answer.
You know, I hit you last week. I sent you a text because, you know, I just had a conversation. We had a Jan Levon John on the show, and I was saying how, like, well, she said,
Queen.
She asked me, am I doing growth work or healing work? And you know, I get triggered easily, right? Like all my old triggers, like it's like, and it's like when you get triggered, it feels like all the work you've done is just out the window, right? Because it feels like you're right back to where you started. right? So what do you think? You think that they go hand in hand? Can you be doing one without the other? Like, is there growth work? Is there healing work? What's the difference?
Yeah. And they absolutely go hand in hand, but they are different things because, you know, human beings by design, we can learn anything. We can regurgitate anything. We can parrot anything. And so what you would kind of call, the way that I'm interpreting what you're sharing, what we would call like that stage in which we are, that stage in which when we're focused more on growth mindset, that is more of the cognitive or intellectualization phase. To actually change our lives and the way that we feel about ourselves, we have to take what we've learned in our minds and bring it down to our hearts and be with ourselves in process. And so, you know, as you shared, you know, like having triggers from not knowing certain answers or having triggers of things that maybe we have been previously working on, even reframing that lens takes us to a place that's so much deeper than growth. And it really becomes that space of transformation and transcendence. And so what that would kind of look like is next time you feel triggered about something, just surrendering to knowing you have a right to feel triggered and that you have been unlearning that, but now there's an opportunity to deepen it. You know, there are certain things within my own story that I've been working on for 10 years, you know, and I remember at one point a few years ago, I ended up like collapsed in tears and I was just like, I thought I already healed this. Why am I crying about this? You know? And someone I was speaking to at the time, they said, yeah, but you healed so much of it. And that's why you've arrived at this moment, an opportunity to go even deeper, you know? And so if we stop looking at the growth of our spirits and the nourishment of our mental health through the lens of society and accomplishment, that's really what the problem is. We're looking at our growth and our healing through the societal construct of what it is to be successful, what it is to be accomplished. And we reframe it around our own personal needs. Freedom is there, you know? And so next time, maybe something that was triggering for you, you know, maybe someone's been walking through healing betrayals or healing something that happened within their family system. And next time you get triggered, just saying, oh, there's still something there and I'm sending it love and I'm working on it and I'm willing to look at it. But also, wow, I've come so far. I remember when this moment, I couldn't even speak it out loud. Now I'm letting myself cry, you know, and it's within this mental health conversation, within like the conversation of well-being, it's really about how can we take away judgment for self, cut out those other voices, and then how can we also meet ourselves with compassion and tenderness when we need it? Ooh. You know, something you and me talk about, me and you talk about this stuff all the time. Like we're always on the phone talking, but you know, we talk about with a joke, like hugging trees, right? But even learning to hug yourself. And I already know there's probably a few people rolling their eyes in the chat and that's cool, but hugging, touching, loving yourself, you know, being able to rest your hand on your heart for a minute, take a breath, close your eyes. You know, how often are we really with ourselves? How often are we really even giving a compassionate hand to us? You can touch yourself. You can focus on your breath. You can close your eyes and get quiet and still and create this galaxy inside of your being, this place that's just for you. You know, reframing how we show up for ourselves is so powerful. Maybe it's not taking yourself on the shopping trip. Maybe it's not going to the spa. Maybe it's just being willing to look your own self in the mirror and stare yourself in the eyes for a few minutes and not look away. You know, maybe it's just, I'm going to hold my own body and hold my own shoulders on a day that I'm not feeling full.
Salute to Shanti Das. I see Angie Martinez in here. Salute to my man D Nice. No, what you're saying is so true, because I think that we look at healing as something that it's like a video game, right? Like you got to complete a level. But my therapist was like, she was like, that's not the way to look at it, because it's a constant process, right? because of what you just said. Those things you might get re-triggered. And you gotta go back within yourself again.
Yeah. And we can't be scared of the triggers. Like, we have to take away the fear of what resides inside of us. That is the biggest piece of it. We all have our stories. And I think, for some people, sometimes those stories, they didn't ask for our consent to live inside of us, right? There are some things that some of us are walking through that feel so shameful, so full of guilt, so full of humiliation, pain, or things that we didn't ask for in such deep ways that it makes us, every time we get triggered, it makes us ashamed of ourselves. And instead, it's like, can you be willing to treat your trigger, to treat your inner child and your younger self with the same love and compassion that you'd offer any other human being or any child on the street? Talk to yourself like a 3-year-old. On my hardest day, I talk to myself the exact way I talk to my 3-year-old son, and I gift myself that love that sometimes I felt I didn't receive. You can give yourself that love, but we have to step out of the fear. When you're triggered, it's nothing to be ashamed about. You experienced trauma and you have come so far in your healing and the healing that you lend to every human being you encounter. And now I'm speaking directly to you, Shar, because you are one of the most loving, loyal human beings I have ever met in my whole life. Like, thinking of you and our friendship will bring me to tears on any day.
Stop! You're gonna make me cry.
I want you to.
Stop.
Let those delicious tears fall. Catch them. Drink them later.
I was gonna ask you to give us an example, because I've seen you talk to my little man. So give me an example of how you talk to yourself like that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. So every night I have a really expansive, specific affirmation session that I do with my son that we've been doing since he was a newborn. And I have found that on some of my days, I repeat the exact same things that I say to him, and I say them to myself. So what I would do is like close my eyes, and I'm going to share with everyone here in the way that I do it for my son. His name is Quest. And so, closing your eyes, hand over heart, and just saying, I always say this to him, so I'm going to just go with it. But mommy loves you. Daddy loves you. God loves you. And you love you. You are filled with joy and enthusiasm for yourself, for your life. You are safe. You are protected. You are provided for. You are covered in God's grace. You are perfectly designed. And then I'll usually say, you are loved and lovable. You are valued and you are valuable. You are cherished and held by the people in your life. You have an expansive, open heart. You are so funny. You are so, and then I'll go into different things, but that is the core of it. And so I send that to him. And a big breakthrough for me was, if I see him and understand him as worthy enough of this, then everything about me is worthy of that as well. Even if I didn't hear it in that way, I can still gift that to myself. So it's even this idea of the lack of what we perceive that we didn't receive from other people, other places, other experiences. We think we're just now expected to live a life devoid of all of that. Where in reality, we are always in control and have choice in gifting that to us. Me doing that with myself for 5 minutes costs me nothing. No one sees me. I can be as tender, as silly as anything that I want to be, but it changes the structure of my day and how I feel about myself.
Wow. Listen, for everybody who's just joining us, my name is Charlamagne Leonard. I'm talking to Debbie Brown. Debbie is a wellness expert. She's an author. Somebody just asked when you putting out a book. She actually has a book out right now called Crystal Bliss.
I do. And I should be working on my next one, right?
You are. She's working on her next one. And she's the host of a podcast, Dropping Gems with Debbie Brown. It's on the Black Effect iHeartRadio podcast network. So you can subscribe to that. And I brought in another member of
Dr. Alfie.
That's right. Another member of my soul tribe, Dr. Alfie. Dr. Alfie Breland Noble. She is a pioneering psychologist, scientist, and author, and she is the chief mental wellness officer for my foundation, the Mental Wealth Alliance. What's up,
Namaste.
Dr.
Hey, how y'all doing? Can y'all hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. It's such a joy to be here. I came in right when Debbie was speaking praise and beauty over her son. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, so I just was thinking about how much when you share those words, Debbie, how we're all reflections of each other. And when you reflect that to your son, it gets reflected back to you. When you and Shar are having this beautiful conversation, you're just reflecting so much light to each other. And it almost makes me want to cry because I think given your platforms and where you sit in the world, that both of you are as kind as you are. You don't have to be that, right? And so that just to me speaks to this idea of what it means to be in the constant process of healing. So I don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation, but that healing, I just receive it, right? And, you know, for full disclosure, I do talk about being an anxious person. It runs in my family as well. Although the person who's the most anxious will never admit it because he's a veteran and like they don't do that. But just knowing that there are people in the world who can sit in this space and be like the two of you and just reflect that goodness and that light, it really is heartwarming. And it's just, it means so much, I know, for so many people. So I speak for all the rest of us commoners out here. It's wonderful for you all that you are who you are and you do what you do. We appreciate you.
Well, I got a couple questions for you, Dr. Alfie. Sustainable_Nas wants to know, how do we address the psychological pandemic we've inherited through the pandemic in communities of color?
One is we have to acknowledge that this is the space that we're in. So it sounds basic, but I think sometimes what we do, we get so used to moving and going. I'm listening to and reflecting on something I heard Debbie say about how we live our lives. And I think what we don't do is we don't stop and recognize what we've been through. We don't stop and recognize what we're going through in the moment. And I think when we do that, when we keep trying to move, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to be present. And I feel like there's this thing, I heard it from Oprah a long time ago. If you don't learn the lesson the first time that it comes, the lesson's going to keep coming back. And the analogy that I remember was, I think she said it starts like a pebble, right? But when it comes back, every time it comes back, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until at the end, it's like a boulder if you don't get the lesson. And so one of the things that I've learned as a Black woman and a woman of color during this pandemic is that, you know, I have these mantras that I use, and I say in every moment, I am liberated to choose. I am liberated to choose my own healing. I am liberated to acknowledge all the things that I'm seeing around me with racial injustice. I am liberated to choose disparities and the recognition of disparities, that's a real thing that I didn't necessarily do anything to contribute to. And if I can recognize that, then I can start unpacking it and working on my healing. But if I just keep going, I can't work on my healing. So my job, my responsibility to the ancestors, seriously, and to me, and to the future, is to always be cognizant of, I have a duty to work on my healing.
Now, see, that scares me, right? No, I'm gonna tell you why. Because when you talk about the bolder thing, how when you don't learn the lesson, it keeps coming back. Is that the same thing as when you keep getting triggered by the same thing?
Sort of. I think, and I can see Debbie wants to add to that too. I think the triggers, I think we have to be patient with ourselves because healing's not linear, right? So it's not like, I heard Debbie say, you heal it and it's fixed. I think the triggers are there. Like that's your body's, like I heard her say, the alarm system. That's true. That's your body's way of telling you this is something that makes me feel unsafe. And I just feel like we have to respect that. So when the lesson keeps coming back, I think what I'm really speaking to is this idea of we keep doing the same things, not paying attention to and being cognizant of what we want to do differently to get a different outcome, right? So for example, if one of the things I'm afraid of is speaking up for myself, right? I can remember this from being someday I'm going to tell all the business about what it means to be in academia, right? And let people know, because it ain't that nice. But if I started out in academia and I didn't speak my mind when I know I needed to, then what's going to keep happening is these opportunities are going to keep showing up for me to speak my mind. because the universe, to Debbie's
Yes.
point, is waiting for me to open my
wants to
mouth
be
and
whole.
use my words, right? It wants me to heal in that way. So for me, the triggers are really, I see them as opportunities. They don't feel like it in the moment, but I really do see them as opportunities. It's just your reminder, this thing is not healed. So this is your opportunity to try something different. What tools do you have? Has your therapist given you, let's try one of those new tools. Last time we used the hammer, this time let's use the screwdriver. So that's how I tend to look at those triggers.
I would love to add, Shar, like 1000% in alignment and agreement with that. You know, it's really in the reframe, right? So like what Dr. Offley was speaking to with really those patterns repeating, I like to call that catching God's fade, because I feel like God used to come to me in whispers and I'd be like, yeah, maybe, all right, God, like I'm gonna keep doing my thing. And the next thing I know, like I'm getting this like divine punch in the face and like I'm being forced to transform. So I've learned that I would no longer like to catch God's fades. So I have fine-tuned my ear to listen to the tiny whispers, right? And sometimes those whispers come to us with just a thought that crosses our mind, or we're at a stoplight and something is revealed. It's when we don't act on it. And so anytime we're not acting on what we know to be for our highest good, or to be the deepest way that we can heal, we're betraying ourselves. So now we're creating all these extra moments of self-betrayal that then begin to affect the way that we feel about ourselves, because we're perceiving ourselves as always letting ourselves down. Now, triggers are, I believe, to be a powerful alarm system, but triggers are different because it's not that the lesson is repeating, but your coping mechanism is repeating. And so like the trigger is that internal experience where it's just letting you know what's going on. We don't get to see that part of it. And it can be so, the triggers can be playful. It's about how we experiencing them. And it's, again, taking away you judging yourself, speaking out to what is real in the world, right? Is this me and how I feel about me? Or is this structural racism? Is this all the ancestral trauma that everyone has carried for hundreds and hundreds of years? For a lot of women, is this the patriarchal trauma that we've been carrying since antiquity, right? And so when we ask questions that are more rooted in rational thought, sometimes that can help. And when we're in the midst of being triggered by something, being able to just be with it. You don't have to do anything with it. Sometimes you can just observe it. I like to be a little more, I like to seduce my pain. So I like to be very flirty with my triggers and my pain and be like, ooh, she upset today. What's going on, baby? Like I get playful with it because the triggers are going to come, but how we experience them is how we choose to experience them. So even reframing, something's coming up. Okay, I need to spend time with this later. I need to heal. I need to focus on this later, and just really tapping in. Something else would like to come out. Let me give it freedom.
Yeah. Or coping with it in the moment. Maybe I need to stop, right? So I agree. Sometimes I'll deal with this later, but sometimes let me stop right now, right? Depending on, I think the size of it is, I think it is there like a speed bump, like slow down, slow your roll, like deal with this now. Sometimes, not always, but I do think sometimes.
Absolutely. And I think that's the emotional regulation of really trusting that what you can give yourself. So in some situations, it's like, you know what, in this exact moment, I'm going to choose something else. Or if maybe you're in the midst of like work or with your child and like, I can't fall apart in tears right now, but I'm going to promise myself that tonight I'm going to give myself a little ceremony. I'm going to let myself cry for as long as my body needs to. And I'm going to get a nice meal. I've done that where I'm like, well, I need to cry. So I drew myself a nice bath. I ordered my favorite takeout. And I was like, you going to cry tonight, girl. Come on.
Wow. I got a couple more questions before we get out of here because, I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time. But, recently I've had people come to me and they said, we talk so much about what it is we need to do as far as our mental health. But what about family members who are dealing with people who have like severe mental health issues or even, I don't want to say there's no such thing as a minor mental health issue, but things less severe than schizophrenia or bipolar, things like that. What do the family members need to do?
So I talk about that. I had this whole series I did on IGTV because what I found when I was practicing closer to full time is that I think as family members, we get caught up in this idea. I know it's not everybody. We get caught up in this idea that we have to save people and we have to save the people in our lives. And one of the first things I always tell family members, especially when we would all be sitting together, is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that savior complex and take it out of the room, right? So for people who are spiritual, who are most of my patients, because they're people of color, generally, I will say, you are not God, nor do you want that responsibility. And so it is not up to you to fix that loved one in your life. It is up to you to love that loved one in your life. And let's start talking about what can you do to care for them in this moment. The first thing you can do is care for yourself. And so I know sometimes people feel like that sounds reductive. I said, but you can't take care of anybody else if you're not taken care of. So, you know, you hear people say you can't pour from an empty cup, right? When you fly, you know, when people used to fly, some of y'all still do fly, whose mask goes on first? Yours. Because if your mask is not on, you can't breathe. If you can't breathe, you can't function, and you can't help the people you love. So I always tell people to come back to this place of it's not your job to fix other people. It's not your job to save other people. And you have to start with taking care of you. Then once you do that, this is me. I think you have to make an assessment of what is it that that person is seeking from you, that loved one who's experiencing, right? Maybe they have significant anxiety. Maybe they have debilitating anxiety. Maybe they do have a psychotic disorder and they're experiencing schizophrenia or something similar. Maybe they do have severe depression. Again, it is, do we take the time to ask people what they need from us instead of making assumptions about what people need from us? So I can remember this one time, a long time ago, my spouse and I were having a conversation and, you know, he was upset. Now, he wasn't depressed in that moment, but he was upset. And so I was like, well, let's go do this. Let's go do this. Let's go do. And finally he was like, Alfie, I don't want any of that. And, you know, I was in my feelings. I was like, wait, what you mean you don't want none of that? You're supposed to want this because I'm trying to help you. But the reality was, that was me. That was my need to do something for him. It wasn't for him. It was for me. And so I think coming back to that place of recognizing, I want to love this person for who they are in this moment. And I need to start by asking them what they need. And if they are in a place where they can tell me what they need, then we have a place where we can start. But we can't start from, I need to fix it. I need to do this, that, and the third, because I don't know what they need. So I think some of it is just coming back place of, you're not here to fix everybody. Stop trying to fix people. You got to deal with you first and then ask them for what they need. I don't know, Debbie, if you have anything you wanted to add.
You know, I think what I'd like to add to this might just speak to a portion of the population watching this, but it might be beneficial. You know, I think when we think about this savior complex that we take on, I think for some people, and this was my personal story, I realized that anything can be used as a tool of self-avoidance, including doing things for other people. And so that was revolutionary for me because so much of my identity was always steeped in how strong I was, how much I was showing up for other people, being the fixer in people's lives, who people came to for advice. Oh, do this, do this. You know, but when you do that on an ego level, it feels really good, even especially when it's for family members, but that's also a trauma response. And that's also, you know, that savior complex, that path of righteousness, that doing, also even some, you know, different systems, they can be used as powerful tools of avoidance. And you can spend your entire life doing them and feeling really great about yourself or looking great to other people, but you didn't get any of the work accomplished here that you were supposed to do for you. And so it's like if you are not connected to your wholeness, what you do for other people is a performance. So who do we want to be, right? Who do we want to be? I want to be healed and whole. When I'm whole and healed or in hot pursuit of self, then me being myself effortlessly extends that permission, that grace, that instructional ability to anybody that gazes upon me.
Wow. This is my final question for both of y'all, because you know, y'all are just two people that I enjoy talking to so much. But why is it important to have somebody to talk to? Because this is one-to-one. So why is it important to have somebody to talk to?
I think there are lots of reasons. One of the reasons is I mean, it's kind of on a basic level. We don't know everything, right? And so we want to be in a place where we are able to, going back to the very beginning, reflect another person's light. We want to be able to reflect, like, say, for instance, Debbie working towards wholeness. I want to be in the presence of people who are working towards that wholeness, because that gives me something to aspire to, right? It makes me feel a sense of community. I'm always talking about BIPOC and marginalized communities, Black folks, the people of color, queer, LGBT folks, people with disabilities. I feel like all of us so often go through the world feeling so isolated, in our workplaces, sometimes in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and, you know, having that other person to, I don't know, like ride or die to go along with you. I think about my girlfriends with the PRR crew. Some of them are here. They know who they are. Like, they reflect different aspects of who I am. And so, you know, I think for me, it's really about finding a sense of community, finding peace in seeing other people who look like me, who reflect me, when there's so much in the world that tells me who I am, being a chocolate girl, right, with natural hair, and having the brain that I have, having come through some of the experiences that I've come through. There's so many ways in which those parts of me are always told you're not enough. Sit down, get back, wait your turn. And I think having other people to talk to helps me undo a lot of that, right? They help me unlearn some of those negative lessons. I see one of my girlfriends just shouted out our crew there, Cindy. And so for me, it's really about helping us know that we're never on this journey alone. And I do say, I think, you know, for those folks who are spiritual, God gives you those friends to, like, just help you on your journey. You're not meant to be on this journey by yourself, right? If I hadn't met you, Shar, if I hadn't met Debbie, like, there are parts of my life that wouldn't be reflected as brightly and as positive as they are now that I've met you and that you've given me an opportunity to be on here with you today. So for me, it's just about not going through life alone. Nobody should go through life alone.
Yeah. Oh, so deeply in agreement with that. Before I answer that, just because I know we're at the end, I want to say this out loud. Dr. Alfie, you are a queen, and I love you. I stan your work, and I love just being in this moment with you.
Thank you, Debbie.
You know, I think human connection, that's what we came here for, right? That's what this earth experience is about. And I think we are meant to be powerful mirrors for one another. I think it is important that we each recognize that we are the star of our own lives, and we should have top billing in our life. But I think we came here to aid each other in a multitude of ways, which even means in the challenging relationships that we have, there is purpose to that. There is something that needs to be known to us, even in that challenging relationship. And we have to deepen in our curiosity to find it, you know? And I think when it comes to some of our best friends that we're blessed with, which, and it might make me cry, but like Shar, like, I love you so much. Like, you're one of my best friends in life. And it's an honor. It's just an honor to have our friendship. I'm so grateful for the relationship we have. You know, when it comes to people like us, I couldn't even imagine living without you. You know, like, we don't have those people that can really see us with clear eyes. Sometimes this human experience is so hard, and we get a really distorted view of who we are if we aren't careful, right? Like, life can really come in and program us in a way that doesn't serve us. But when we are blessed with some of these substantial, deep, beautiful relationships, we can always return home. You know, we can always see ourselves in the way that the people love us most see us. And also they can offer such great insight that we may not have grasp of. So I think we need this solo experience and to be on our journey, but we also deeply need this shared human experience. You know, that's how those paradigm shifts happen, because of conversations like this that then go on to change the world, you know, and raise collective consciousness. So all parts are necessary. All parts have purpose.
Debbie Brown, Dr. Alfie, I love you both. I value you both. I appreciate you both. Tell them where to find y'all.
Go ahead, Debbie.
I might be pinned below, I don't know, but at Debbie Brown, just my name, DEVI Brown. The link in bio will take you everywhere. I have a podcast, I have a website, I have a bunch of different stuff that I feel really grateful to do. So link in bio at DebbieBrown.com or at Debbie Brown Instagram.
So it's www.dralfie.com. It looks like Dralfie. My son's kids, that's what they call me. They call me Dralfie. Liam and Luke and all y'all kids. And Dr. Alfie Drouthy is my handle. It's everywhere on Twitter, on Instagram, so on and so forth. And then I also want to shout out, because I know Shar's not going to do it, the Mental Wealth Alliance, all one word. You got to go there and check that out. And then the Acoma Project is a youth and young adult nonprofit. I'm sorry. And then I have to say to both of you, I just wish you so much love and light, and I'm sending you so much love. And I do love both of you. You all are just incredible people, and I'm just so grateful to Kenneth Cole and the Mental Health Coalition. You have no idea what you've done for me just in this 45 minutes. Honestly, y'all are a blessing. So thank you so much.
Salute to my guy Kenneth Cole. Salute to the Mental Health Coalition. Salute to Nicole. I see Queen Nicole Shelton on here too. So hello, Nicole, and thank y'all very much. And I appreciate you, and I hope that everybody, learned something from this live. I hope this live poured something into you today. All right. Thank you both, Queens.
Love you both.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you.